All right, I'm doing Fallen Eagles, Waterloo, 1815. This is a Hexasym game, regimental game, scale game on the Battle of Waterloo. Pan back here. I'm using the historical setup, doing the full battle. There's options for kind of a free setup with some restrictions, of course. And there's also the option, which is kind of neat, to use these kind of alternate history cards you can draw, which can have, effects like, what happens if Grouchy wins at Wavre and the Prussians never show up, an earlier start to the battle, etc. I'm not going to be using them. This is only the second time I played this game, and I really enjoyed my first playthrough of it, and I didn't use these either, and I just it's been a while, though, since I did my first playthrough, and I want to do just the historical battle again. So as we can see, the Anglo-Allied army is set up here on the ridge, and the French army is set up, to begin its assault and choose how it's going to go about assaulting this very strong position here. The game comes. Let's see. We got the order of play. Let me do that. So you have an orders phase here, and over here to the side, there's these little mini maps, and you assign orders to your various formations, which are your corps, and you're going to place them either in defensive orders, or you're going to give them a geographical order, which will allow them greater movement, but they also have to try and go to that geographical order. Every turn you can try and change them. During the turn you can try and change them with your commander as well. The French here have much fewer chits, which is actually very nice for them, which I can explain later when we get in the game through. The British have or the Anglo-Allied, I'll probably end up saying British a lot. No offense meant to, obviously the Dutch and Belgians and Germans that fought in the army as well. It just kind of, it's Wellington, it's Waterloo. I'll tend to say that, but I'll try not to. So the Anglo-Allied army has all these chits here and formations. Before the game starts, they will assign them on here as well on these mini maps. Okay. So one other different feature of the game is that there are these tactics cards, and the game starts with a card draft. Hey, this is like I guess Magic the Gathering card draft, right? And it'll start with the French. The French will choose one of these cards, then the Anglo-Allied player, and back and forth until they're all gone. I've kind of separated them here because there is, for example, there's this No More Ammo card, which basically allows one of these fortified farms to be taken if it's surrounded or bypassed if it's after 5 p.m. in the day. This is very useful for the French to be able to take one of those without having to keep pounding against it and taking big losses. These other ones here, these are more centered around the Anglo-Allied army, who are going to be doing more of these no surrendering or time to reload. Now, they can still be used by the other side. There may be times that'll be useful as well. But I kind of separated them as though, the French aren't particularly going to want to take these cards or draft them, because, unless to deny them to the Anglo-Allied player. These are kind of more generic, useful to everyone cards. And again, this one, the British may want to take this one. I'm going to just say British, okay? Because it's easier to say than Anglo-Allied for me, for whatever reason. So the British are going to, maybe want to take this one to deny it to the French. There was this possibility of doing that. There's this very powerful barrage card. I put this at the top here, which basically allows all the artillery units to shoot at once. Very powerful. Maybe something the French are going to want to take first to ensure they have that to set up kind of a grand battery with all their artillery units when they can get them into place. All right. So there's going to be this draft element here to the game. of these cards. And when you play a card, and you can only play one card per turn, you give it to your opponent. They can't play it that turn, but they'll be in their hand to play a following turn. So it's kind of interesting how that works. It's not just one shot and it's done. And you have something like a Void Fate here, which is you can reroll any die roll. Wow, that's pretty powerful, right? You get a really bad roll, or your opponent gets a really good roll, and you can cancel it. Give them this card, and that can be very very effective. So that's an interesting factor to the game as well, something a little different. As far as the units, this is pretty standard. You have a size is the factor there. Maybe I got this pencil out to do that. You have let me get the tip here. You have the quality of the unit. High is better. Eight's a good quality unit, and then the movement factor. These are double-sided counters. This is the full strength, and when they're reduced, they have lesser values. Units can rout off the board, or they can rout in general. They can be rallied. If they rout off the board, they're eliminated, but they're only worth half victory points to the other side if they rout off the board rather than being eliminated on the board. You have commanders here that are in charge of the core. They have a activation rating, and then they have a leadership rating. When you try and activate them, you roll 2 dice. If it's less than or equal to that number, they'll activate. Otherwise, you move on to a different leader and try and activate a different leader. Combat, well, that'll add that number to the quality of a unit for that stack. Okay. So it's a fairly basic system in terms of if you're familiar with a war game like this. It's movement, it's combat. There's fire combat, there's melee combat. However, you may notice, unlike most games of regimental games or games of the scale, no, the Anglo-Allied army is not retreating off the board. There is no facing in this game. So facing does not matter. There is no formations in the sense of you don't put a unit into line or column or square. That's not represented in the game. This is kind of basics, and because the turns are hour-long turns, the designers kind of said, hey, facing isn't going to matter because units are going to react. They're not going to not turn to face approaching enemy units. And there is a modifier if you're attacking a unit, have it basically surrounded. There's a positive modifier in combat for that. Let's see. There's cavalry countercharges. Cavalry charging infantry in open are going to get an advantage unless those units are in defense orders, and that kind of simulates the square. So if a unit's in defense orders, it's going to negate that cavalry charge advantage. However, there's some negatives about being in defense orders. You're easier to shoot up with artillery, and you can only move 1 hex, basically, during your activation. So just putting everybody into defense orders, on the Anglo-Allied side, probably isn't the best idea. You're probably going to want to put some geographic orders so they can move a little bit. And I can always change that, and I can always choose not to move them towards those objectives or do a very limited movement that way. Okay, also you have some army commanders. The French have 2. They have Napoleon and they have Ney. And army commanders can do some special things. They can activate stacks outside of the regular activation sequence. They can rally units. They can have formations change their orders as well. So they can be used for that. Over here we have, of course, Wellington, the Iron Duke, and we've got Orangey, the Prince of Orange. And they're the 2 army commanders for the Anglo-Allied army. Of course, the Prussians are going to be coming on, and they're going to be coming on when I think they start coming on at the 2 p.m. turn. So as you can see, hour-long turns. There's not a great number of turns in the game. However, the way the game sequence works, formations can activate up to twice each turn. However, they can't activate twice in a row. And there's a variable turn end each turn. You're going to make a die roll after each formation activates. And if you roll greater than this first number here, in the case of 9, after every formation is activated, if you roll a 10 or above, you'll flip the turn counter over, and then again you'll keep rolling after every formation. If you get above that number, the turn's over. So it's usually likely that not all the formations are going to activate twice, especially the Anglo-Allied formations, because there's so many of them. They're probably not going to activate twice over the course of a turn before the turn ends. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. Let me sit here and do a little bit of the card drafting before we get started, because I always think it's interesting part of the game. So, okay, I'm the French. Do I want to take this no more ammo? That's going to allow me to take one of these fortified positions at 5 p.m. or later. Now, I have to take one of these spaces on the board by 4 p.m. or I automatically lose. Is the French. And these are we got. I think these spaces are marked with the flags. So we have like Papillot, La Hyacinthe, there, Hougemont, of course, and where else? Marbise, over there as well. And there's a couple of spaces up on this ridge that are also marked. So I got to take at least one of those. And that's by 4 p.m. So this card won't help me as far as achieving that objective. So maybe I won't take it, even though it seems like something that'd be a good idea. Truthfully, I think I really want this barrage marker. This barrage card, this can really set up a big turn for the French. So the French are going to draft that first. All right, we're going to flip over to I'm going to say Wellington. Okay, so Wellington, what does Wellington want to do? Well, we could take this card to deny that to the French, and that's nice. These cards are nice. The Avoid Fate card is really nice, as is the Rally. What does Rally do? Well, these 3 stacks automatically of a formation, automatically rally. That is really nice. Okay, but I think I'm going to take the Avoid Fate card. That's just a nice one to have. Because if I roll really good, or the French, the French can't play this to cancel that, or if the French roll really bad, they can't use that to avoid that. So I'm going to take the Avoid Fate. All right, back over. To the French, do I want the no more ammo? Well, what else do we got? Some of these are nice. Heroic Leader is really good. Kind of like Heroic Leader. This kind of avoids the after leaders affecting a single combat is doubled. That's nice, but I can get killed with that pretty easily. Oh, Leader Safe is the one I'm thinking about. So whenever a friendly leader is captured, wounded, or killed, I can place this to avoid that. That would allow me to keep one of my good combat leaders, like Derloin, up in front with a stack and not have to worry about him getting killed. And so I think I'm going to take that, because I think I have a plan, and that plan is going to involve the first corps under Derloin, and I want to keep him safe. So I'm going to take that. Okay, we're back over to the British. What do we want to do here, or to Wellington? Well, I think we're going to go with... we're going to take this no more ammo card. We don't want the French to have that. And that means we feel pretty safe at Hougemont. Okay, I'll go through the rest of these off camera. I just wanted to get those kind of main ones and kind of show how the drafting of these cards works. And it's kind of an interesting pregame deal, and something I quite enjoy about the game. So, all right, I will do that, and then I'll come back and start the playthrough.